Sydney Sweeney's having none of it, and that's a very good thing.
The criticism of the content, which was basically that maybe specifically in this political climate, like white people shouldn't joke about genetic superiority. Like that was kind of like the criticism, broadly speaking. And since you are talking about this, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about that specifically.
I think that when I have an issue that I want to speak about, people will hear.
Hey everyone, I'm Rich Lowry of National Review, and everything was so great about that, right? Sydney Sweeney's dead eyes looking at this interviewer that she's clearly annoyed by from the beginning. The interview is very awkward from beginning to end for that reason, and the faux solicitousness of this annoying woman, straight from Bushwick or some hipster haven like that, supposedly giving Sweeney this great opportunity to address this nonsense controversy that was manufactured from the beginning about the American Eagle ad campaign. And Sydney Sweeney just doesn't engage. She doesn't want to talk about her social and political views. Now, as a practical matter, that probably means she's right of center. When celebrities don't want to talk about their politics, that's usually a sign that they consider it awkward because they're not part of the progressive monoculture in Hollywood. 2, she's wearing cowboy boots in this interview. That's another sign. 3, she had a Western-style hoedown for her mother's 60th birthday. Everyone said this was in effect like a MAGA rally. That was nonsense, and she pushed back on that. But it's another sign that, at the very least, she's not one of them. And I think the big takeaway here is that Sydney Sweeney represents a throwback to a different kind of celebrity, a different model of celebrity. She is, if you will, much more like Marilyn Monroe than, say, Alyssa Milano. Now, people can make unfounded stereotypes about Marilyn Monroe. She was a very clever woman, had some interest in books, was an actress in some very funny movies. But at the end of the day, she was a sexpot, and she knew it. And she would toy around with her beauty and her desirability and her sex appeal. She went out and entertained the troops. She made fun of the fact that on the street she could be a showstopper with that famous scene from the 7-Year Itch, the movie where she's standing in a dress above the subway grate. She could flirt with the president of the United States in front of thousands of people at Madison Square Garden. And there's an aspect of Sydney Sweeney that's the same. Now, she is a more accomplished actress. She's producing her own movies now. Good on her. But when that American Eagle ad or escapades like selling some of her bathwater to people, she is playing that Marilyn Monroe sexpot role. And there's not, or there shouldn't be, a soapbox attached to that status, right? It's Farrah Fawcett. It's Sidney Crawford. It's Kate Upton as we march through the decades. And there's just shouldn't be a role there where you're a social and political commentator like you're a New York Times columnist. So this is a much more healthy conception of what a celebrity is and why they have an exalted status in our society. And this is finally this notion. Sydney Sweeney was onto it instinctively much earlier than others, but now you have celebrities who have been mounting that soapbox finally realizing, maybe that isn't such a good idea. Check out this clip from a Jennifer Lawrence interview recently.
In the first Trump administration, you had a lot to say. I'm curious how you feel about talking out now.
I don't really know if I should. I think like the first Trump administration was so wild, and just how can we let this stand? Like I felt like I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off. But as we've learned, election after election, celebrities do not make a difference whatsoever on who people vote for.
Yes, that 100 times that. And that's an insight that's been delayed about 30 years for the likes of Jennifer Lawrence, who was inveighing against President Trump in his first term, saying he only favored white males and all the rest of it, all that nonsense. And it's finally occurred to her, something that Sydney Sweeney instinctively has understood from the beginning, that no one cares. No one cares. Why doesn't anyone care? Well, because actors and actresses are good at two things. One, they very often are very attractive. Good for them. That's an immutable characteristic. Two, they're good at pretending to be other people, especially when they have very specific directions given to them via a script, via a director about how to do that. Now, these are impressive skills in many ways, skills that are important to our society, go back in Western civilization to the Greeks, fine. But that doesn't give you any social or political insight, right? Doesn't make you a sociologist, doesn't make you a political commentator, certainly doesn't make you a seer. And there's an old story about Beethoven when he was supposedly walking along a path with the great German writer Goethe, and a member of the royalty came down the same path, walking towards them. And Goethe gets out of the way, he bows, all the rest of it, and Beethoven refuses. And this is supposedly a sign of how Beethoven now realizes the artistic class is superior to royalty. Royalty is just an accident of birth, but an artist is a genius. He's a higher being. Now, I have a lot of time for Beethoven. He was genuinely a genius, but I wouldn't consult him on his views about contemporary political events. There's no reason to believe he knows anything about that. And certainly the likes of Jennifer Lawrence is not a world historical genius like Beethoven. But a lot of these celebrities have imagined themselves as being elevated in this higher plane where they hand down these great insights to us. And another thing that's been obnoxious about this, right, is the insights are not insightful. They're all just part of the herd. I have no idea what Jennifer Lawrence really thinks about anything. I'm certain that at least at the margins, she realized it'd be good for her, or thought it'd be good for her in her career if she went along with the progressive herd. So it's just very healthy for our society if we stop doing this. If celebrities are no longer politicized, if celebrities no longer feel compelled to mouth progressive platitudes, it's so much better to hear the likes of this from Sydney Sweeney.
We're sort of talking around this American Eagle ad right now, and maybe we should just talk about it. So, were you surprised by the reaction?
I did a Gene ad.
Exactly right. She made an ad. She just made an ad, and she's in the ad because she happens to be very attractive. And the person in that ad does not need to engage in complicated exegesis about what the ad means. She doesn't have to tease out all the supposed political and cultural implications, and she certainly doesn't need to apologize for it. So I think Sydney Sweeney is a very welcome trend in our culture. She is pointing towards a better way of doing these things. Bring back Marilyn Monroe. Bring back actors and actresses and celebrities who know their role in our culture and don't believe that that role is to lecture us, or in the case of Sydney Sweeney, to be lectured to. I'm Rich Lowry, over and out.